Alright, hello everybody. Today we're going to be going over why proc trinkets for healers are really not very good. So, I think 2 weeks ago I got this trinket, Flask of the Solemn Night, 920, 2,500 intellect, and obviously with the haste proc on it. And you might look at this and think, wow, this is amazing, congratulations, this is an amazing trinket. Well, the truth is it's really not. It's really quite bad. And there is a very important distinction to realize why this is bad. So if we have a look at player healing, there is a big distinction between the difference in this and the difference in what player damage is. So when you're DPSing a boss, you have its entire health bar to get through. Once that health bar goes, the fight ends. As a healer, the only thing you can do is react to the damage the boss does. There is always going to be a cap on how much HPS you can do because you can only heal what damage has gone out in the fight. And that is very important to realize because your overall HPS is really a non-factor in most of your gameplay. And I say most of your gameplay because obviously if you are significantly behind, then yes, your overall healing is a problem. So as a healer, what are you primarily concerned about? You're primarily concerned about keeping people alive, and that comes from burst healing people in certain parts of the fight. So what do you need to make sure you aim your kit of what you're wearing to make sure you can react to large amounts of damage in a fight. So you need to be taking all the advantages you can to ensure you do that. And what does that mean? That means also trying to reduce the RNG you have in your spec, in your toolkit, which comes from not wearing proc trinkets. But we'll get into that a little bit when we look at how the actual trinket has worked in this example and how it worked in some other examples. So in this example, you can see that this is Mythic Trilliax. And in Mythic Trilliax, we know that the largest amount of AoE healing that comes out is going to be during its Maniac phase, when Trilliax has the red buff. And that red buff spawns at 3 distinct periods, during this fight at least, and you can see how my healing kind of reacts to that. Now, when we look at our trinket buffs, right, we can go to buffs here. We can go find the Flask of the Solemn Night, Solemn Entity, and we can pin that to the top here. So we can see that our trinket procced 6 times during this fight. So if we go back to our healing, and we'll see how that trinket affects my healing. And you'll see for this large spike at the start of the fight, it literally has done nothing. These first 3 trinket procs literally did nothing to aid my healing. My healing was already done by the time the trinket had procced once. At the end of the fight, yeah, it might have helped slightly. During the second Maniac phase, it didn't help at all. It didn't proc at all. So essentially, all I'm getting from this trinket is 2,500 int. And while that is very good because it is such a high item level, it might be worth me equipping in some cases. But in a lot of cases, I would just be simply better using something like the Urn. Okay? Because that is just, that's flat 1,800 int and 1,100 mastery, I think. And that, that would be an overall throughput healing, and that would always be a passive during these high periods. So this is a fairly clear-cut example to why this Flask of the Solemn Night really wasn't very good for me in this case. But, you might think that, okay, well, it might not be good in, you might get unlucky and it might not work in some situations, but, in most of them it might. Well, sure, but why would you want to incorporate a lot of more RNG into your rotation when, as a healer, you're not concerned about overall throughput? You should not be concerned about your HPS. All you're really concerned about is people not dying. And people not dying comes from you being, trying to keep the same patterns, trying to do the same healing, trying to make sure that when, say, on Trilliax, for example, when the Maniac comes out, you can respond in the same way. If you've done it once, you can do it twice. That's kind of, you want to make sure you eliminate all the RNG possible, so the same thing happens every single time, and you remain to have consistency. Now, obviously, the trinkets, while they're good, their impacts aren't that great that they, probably won't make or break a fight. But then again, it just comes down to, why would you handicap yourself for no reason? Alright, so I'm going to take another quick look at Score Pyro. Now this log isn't as bad, as say that Trilliax log, but again, we'll see that we can pin the trinket proc here. We can also pin something like innovate to just see, when we're preempting our healing, just to give you kind of a better idea. And we look at our healing. So obviously for this, and especially again, we'll just go over this trinket. This trinket gives us a haste proc. When do we want the haste proc? We want the haste proc either during an innovate to get out more spells during innovate, or we want it preemptively or during a lot of, a big healing period. So we see that this big first healing period here, this would have been Rapture, right? So we did get a trinket proc at about the end of the Rapture. You can see all the powered shield healing here. So this trinket proc really didn't help us to get out more powered shields. This second trinket proc, innovate lasts 10 seconds. We got the trinket proc about 75% of the way through. So it really didn't help us there either. This proc, not much healing here. This proc, yeah, they might help during the end, and this one was a good one. So of the 6 procs here, really we got one good one, one average one, across an entire 5-minute fight. And this is what a lot of your logs will look like. So, for me, the chances of actually getting a good proc on this trinket, during an innovate, during my raptures, really is quite low. And especially as a disc priest, when your healing is so spiky, when there is literally, 10 to 15 seconds where you're going to be doing majority of your healing every, 1 or 2 minutes, and you need these trinkets to proc at this certain time to do a lot of healing, they're just not reliable. They're not good for you at all. And disc priest is kind of a greater example of this, because our healing is so bursty and so compacted into these small windows that proc trinkets really are quite terrible, and I would try and stay away from them as much as possible. If you have something like this 920 and you don't have, say an 880 urn or something, yeah, the trinket might be good just for the flat intellect. But the proc, again, is almost worthless, and I would try and stay away from them as much as possible. So I hope this kind of explains to you why proc trinkets are bad, especially for disc priests, but all healers in general. I hope this kind of explains to you why you shouldn't wear them, and why sims around some trinkets as well aren't accurate at all, because they go off your overall healing. Overall across 10,000 attempts, they might be good, but in your one specific attempt, it might be terrible. And that's what the problem is. You want to have consistency, not about your HPS, not about your overall HPS. It's about consistency and not having people die. Alright, well, I hope you learned something, and thanks for watching.